Hello everyone, I'm James. Today we're diving into a case that will shake you to your core. Two innocent little girls went out for a bike ride on Mother's Day and never came home. What followed was a horrifying investigation filled with lies, a coerced confession, and an innocent father who spent 5 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. But the real killer. He was hiding in plain sight, free to continue his trail of violence until one critical mistake finally brought him down. Please support the channel by subscribing and staying active. It really helps me out a lot. I'd be incredibly grateful for that. Let's get started. On May 8th, 2005, Mother's Day, 8-year-old Laura Hobbs and her best friend, 9-year-old Crystal Tobias, disappeared. They left home around 3 p.m., riding their bikes to the nearby park just a few hundred yards away. They'd done this many times before. It was safe. At least that's what everyone thought. By 7 p.m., the girls still hadn't come home. Their families started searching. They walked the bike paths, called their names. Nothing. At 9 p.m., police were called. Search teams moved through the park and nearby neighborhoods. Flashlights cut through the darkness. Volunteers joined in, but there was no sign of the girls. Around 6 a.m. the next morning, Jerry Hobbs, Laura's father, was still searching. Then he found them. The bodies of both girls were hidden off the bike trail in thick bushes. They'd been stabbed to death. Laura had 20 stab wounds. Crystal had 11. For a small town like Zion, Illinois, it was unthinkable. 2 children murdered just steps from their homes. And the person who found them, Laura's own father, immediately became the prime suspect. The police wasted no time. Jerry Hobbs was brought in for questioning that same morning. His past didn't do him any favors. A history of violence, drug-related charges, and a disturbing incident in 2001 where he chased 3 men with a chainsaw during an argument with his wife. To investigators, it all seemed to fit. Jerry was interrogated for over 20 hours straight. No food, no sleep, just relentless pressure. Detectives pushed hard, repeating the same questions, showing him pictures of his dead daughter, asking him again and again, "Why did you do it, Jerry?" At first, he denied everything, but as the hours passed and exhaustion took over, his story started to change. By the end of the night, Jerry was in tears. He confessed. He claimed that on the evening of May 8th, he went looking for Laura. He said he found her and Crystal at the park. Laura refused to come home. She talked back. Jerry got angry. He grabbed her by the arm. According to Jerry, Crystal pulled out a small knife trying to defend her friend. That's when he snapped. He took the knife from her and 20 stab wounds for Laura, 11 for Crystal. After the confession, Jerry signed the papers. He even repeated his statement on camera. It was done. Case closed. But something about this didn't sit right. The public was shocked. How could a father do something like this to his own child? His wife later told police she wasn't surprised. She always knew about Jerry's violent tendencies. While Jerry sat behind bars, the prosecutors pushed for the death penalty. The case seemed solid. Signed confession, a video recording. But behind the scenes, his attorney wasn't convinced. He started digging. And soon, he found something the police had conveniently ignored. Evidence. Real physical evidence. Samples had been collected from the girls' bodies, skin from under their fingernails, swabs from their clothes. But no one had tested them. Those samples sat in a refrigerator for months untouched. By 2008, 3 years after the murders, Jerry was still sitting in a jail cell waiting for his trial. His attorney, frustrated and running out of options, finally forced the issue. The evidence that had sat untouched in a refrigerator was sent for independent DNA testing. And then, finally, a breakthrough. The tests revealed foreign DNA on Laura's body, skin cells under her fingernails, male DNA on her clothes, even traces found on 3 places of her body. But it wasn't Jerry's DNA. The lawyer pushed for Jerry's immediate release, but the prosecutor refused. He dismissed the DNA evidence, calling it a coincidence. He argued that the park was a popular spot for young couples, and the DNA must have come from the bushes or grass. Even the fact that biological samples were found inside Laura's body wasn't enough to convince them. Jerry's attorney fought back, but every request for dismissal was denied. Jerry remained locked up. And then, far from Zion in Arlington, Virginia, something happened that changed everything. In 2009, Amanda Snell, a young Navy sailor, was found dead in her barracks. At first, her death was ruled an accident, but it didn't add up. Months later, police arrested a man named Jorge Ayala Torres, a soldier stationed at the same base where Amanda died. As detectives dug into his past, they uncovered a horrifying pattern of violence. Torres had been linked to several assaults and abductions. When his DNA was entered into the national database, everything fell into place. It was a perfect match to the DNA found on Laura Hobbs' body. The real killer had finally been identified. Torres's arrest opened the floodgates. Investigators unraveled a terrifying timeline. Just months before, Torres had attempted to abduct multiple women in Arlington. Victim escaped after using a stun gun. Another wasn't so lucky. He abducted her at gunpoint, raped her, and left her unconscious in the snow, thinking she was dead. When police searched his vehicle, they found the stun gun, duct tape, and personal belongings of the women he'd attacked. In his barracks, they discovered a hidden stash of violent videos and photos, some showing unconscious women. Torres wasn't just a predator. He was a calculated, cold-blooded killer. Investigators knew they had the right man, but they needed a confession, so they planted an informant in his cell. Within days, Torres started bragging. He talked about killing Amanda Snell, how he smothered her with a pillowcase, then carefully cleaned the crime scene. But he made one critical mistake. He left a mattress cover with his DNA on it. That's all police needed. Torres was charged with Amanda's murder and multiple other assaults. But as his DNA profile went nationwide, it connected him to the murders of Laura Hobbs and Crystal Tobias back in Zion. It was a shocking revelation. The real killer had been a teenager when he murdered the girls, just 16 years old, and no one suspected him. While Jerry Hobbs sat in jail, Torres walked free, enlisting in the military and continuing his spree of violence. Jerry's lawyer demanded his immediate release. This time, the prosecutor had no choice. Jerry was a free man again, but nothing about his life would ever be the same. The news of Jerry Hobbs' release spread fast, but for him, freedom didn't feel like victory. He'd spent 5 years locked away, branded a monster, beaten down by a justice system that cared more about closing a case than finding the truth. He walked out of prison, a free man, but everything had changed. His marriage had collapsed. He couldn't reconnect with his children, and every time he looked in the mirror, he saw the man everyone believed had murdered his own daughter. Meanwhile, Jorge Torres faced his own reckoning. In Virginia, he stood trial for the murder of Amanda Snell and the assaults on multiple women. He refused to admit guilt, but the evidence was overwhelming. DNA eyewitnesses, and his own recorded confessions. The jury didn't take long. Torres was found guilty and sentenced to death. But it didn't end there. Illinois authorities wanted their turn. Torres was extradited back to face charges for the murders of Laura Hobbs and Crystal Tobias. In the courtroom, he sat stone-faced, offering no apology, no explanation. His lawyer tried to argue that the DNA evidence wasn't enough, but Torres knew how this would end. Facing another inevitable conviction, he took a deal. He confessed to the murders in exchange for avoiding a second death sentence. Instead, he was handed an additional 100 years in prison and transferred to a higher security facility. For the families of Laura and Crystal, it was a hollow victory. The monster who took their daughters' lives would spend the rest of his days behind bars, but no amount of justice could bring those girls back. And for Jerry Hobbs, there was no redemption. After his release, he fell back into drug use, arrested again for resisting arrest, then escaping custody, 2 more years in prison. In his rare public interview, Jerry said it plainly. "They didn't have to break me, I was already broken the moment I found my daughter's body." The system that was supposed to deliver justice had nearly destroyed an innocent man and allowed a real killer to roam free for years. The aftermath of the case left scars that never fully healed. For Jerry Hobbs, freedom came with a price he could never repay. He'd lost his daughter twice, once to a brutal murder, and once more to a justice system that turned him into a villain. No amount of compensation could fix that. He eventually agreed to a settlement with the state, just under $8 million money that might have secured his future, but couldn't buy back his dignity or the years he lost. Jerry tried to move on. He relocated to Texas, far from the town where his life had fallen apart, but the damage was done. Addiction took hold. Arrests followed. His life became a cycle of courtrooms, rehab centers, and jail cells. And the police officers who coerced his confession, the prosecutors who ignored the evidence. They faced no consequences. Not one lost their badge or stood trial for their role in the wrongful conviction. Public outrage followed the case. Media outlets across the country condemned the investigation. How could a system fail this badly? How many more innocent lives would be destroyed before it changed? Jorge Ayala Torres remains on death row, his execution date still pending. Until then, he lives out his days in isolation, surrounded by the cold gray walls of a maximum security prison. And the families of Laura and Crystal. They visit 2 graves side by side, the laughter of 2 little girls silenced forever by a predator hiding in plain sight. This case was a brutal reminder. Sometimes the justice system doesn't just fail, it creates new victims in its failure.